Today on GrowthShares, let's analyze and see whether Taiwan Semiconductor manufacturing is a great long-term investment. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, is a Taiwanese multinational semiconductor contract manufacturing and design company. It's the world's most valuable semiconductor company and the world's largest dedicated independent pure-play semiconductor foundry and one of Taiwan's largest companies. Most of the leading fabless semiconductor companies such as AMD, Apple, ARM, Broadcom, Marvell, MediaTek, and NVIDIA are customers of TSMC. TSMC is the first foundry to provide 7nm and 5nm production capabilities, which were used on newer iPhone models. I've divided this analysis into three major factors: business, investment, and valuation. Each factor is then divided into 14 smaller metrics. Each of the three factors and their 14 metrics are given different weight, together adding to 100% of the analysis. They'll be graded on a scale from 0 to 10, with 0 being the worst and 10 being the best. When the analysis is complete, I'll give a final score. My analysis takes a long-term view of the company. That means years. Let's first look at the business. Everything starts with what the company actually does. It's more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. That's why 45% of the analysis depends on the business. Something that makes $1 billion a year might sound nice, but how is it using its resources to make that billion? Fortunately, that can be quantified. There are 8 metrics that I use to measure the business, and we'll dive into them right now. How much is the company growing? TSMC has a growth rate of 11.5%, giving us a score of 7. Is the company using its resources effectively? TSMC has margins of 44.37%, which means a score of 10. Is the company operating efficiently? TSMC has operations of 32.9, which means a score of 0. How is the company using its invested capital? TSMC has returns of 23.2%, which means a score of 8. How much debt does the company use? TSMC has utilization of 3.3, which gives us a score of 9. Does the company pay out a dividend? TSMC pays a 2.33% dividend, which means a score of 8. Does the company have good governance? TSMC has an ESG risk rating of 13.1, which means a score of 8. How close is the company to a monopoly? TSMC has a primary market dominance, which means a score of 10. When we add up all 8 business metrics together, we get a score of 6.77. Next, let's look at the investment. This factor looks at the company solely as an investment, as if rendering the company down to just ticker symbols on the screen. That's why 22% of the analysis depends on its investment score. How are others seeing the company from a trader and analyst point of view? What are the numbers telling us when it comes to this? There are 5 metrics that I use to measure the investments, and we'll dive into them right now. How well has the company's stock performed? TSMC has a performance ratio of negative 1.7, which means a score of 0. How do traders see the company? TSMC has a range of negative 24.89%, which means a score of 0. Are investors betting against the stock? TSMC has a short interest of 0.23%, which gives us a score of 9. What do other analysts think of the company? TSMC has a buy recommendation of 16%, giving us a score of 1. Do big firms own the company? TSMC has an ownership of 17.4%, which means a score of 2. When we add up all 5 investment metrics together, we get a score of 2.27. Finally, let's look at the valuation. Valuation is simple. It takes everything we've talked about and puts into a single number, the price at which we would be willing to buy the company's stock. That's why 33% of the analysis depends on its fair value price. At what price is the company worth pursuing? There's only one metric that I use to measure the valuation, and we'll dive into it right now. What is the most you should pay for the company? TSMC has a fair value price of $94.55 per share, which I consider to be undervalued, which means a score of 8. As a refresher, here are all 14 metric scores. Finally, we'll add the 3 factors together to get the final score. Based on my complete analysis of Taiwan Semiconductor manufacturing, I give a final score of 6.19, which makes it an above-average long-term investment. So you've made it this far. Shoot me an email. I'd love to get in touch with you and talk more. If you want to see me analyze more companies, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and share this video with other investors. And as always, take care of your money.